So Floyd recognizes that his freedom and success and reputation, at least as the kind of like the quarterback and the chosen son of the community, it depends on the kind of sadistic outlier character of O'Banion, who's like part of the team. And so it's really weird to see that as these quote unquote individuals, and especially these individual white liberal males, as they try to figure out like, what are my values? What can I be? The awkward truth, the inconvenient truth is that the space of their own freedom is depending upon a much more explicit form of white male sadism that keeps the lane open for them. And so when you criticize like white heterosexuals online, which I read all these threads, that are like all straight white men are like the problem kind of a thing, in a certain structural way, you can see that taking place in this film too. Like, because you always want to be like, hey, that's not me. I'm not part of it. And I'm not trying to cast guilt or shame here either. That's not my intent.
I love it though, but it explains the contempt between those two types of white men. You know what I mean? Because as much as people like to flatten white men into just one category, there is a sort of like dynamic there, and yeah, they might be both. Each of these men, like the liberal that's like, I'm an anti-violent guy, and then the like savage that's like, fuck you, pussy. Like those guys might hate each other, but they're dependent upon each other in a lot of ways. Yeah, and it comes up in 90s films a lot, and I'm sure lots of works of fiction, not just 90s stuff. But the two things I'm thinking about is Point Break with Patrick Swayze, who's like the surfer hippie bank robber, but he like doesn't shoot anybody, but he says, I hang around with like these other guys that like they do the violence for me, basically, because I don't have the taste for it myself, like that sort of thing. And then think about that. How many times have we shared the scene of Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men, where he's like, men like you, in ways that you don't talk about at your Washington cocktail parties. You need men like me. You want me on that line. You need me on that line. He's just basically throwing it in his face that like, yeah, we're the violent end of your entire civilizational project is dependent upon us, and yet you act like we're the bad guys. And it makes sense that there would be animosity between these two figures. And in fact, the animosity is required for each of them to construct their respective ideologies, which move together as one piece, really.
Woo! That's a nice little setup for Trump and Biden right there. Also, that's like 30